Hey everyone, welcome back to the Harrelson Hangout. We're with Greg Harrelson, and where he's going to be again going through and coaching one of his agents on his team, and going through the process and helping guide them on their path to reach their goals. So, welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for doing this. It's always fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. And I thank you for kicking us off. And Brittany, thank you for being putting in a full effort last time to try to get on the Hangout. I know we had some technical difficulties last month, but let's go ahead and let's just get right into it. I'm excited to coach you over this Hangout. Who knows where the heck we're going to go? But before we get started, can you just tell everybody, how long you've been in the business? Yeah, how long you've been in the business?
Well, I started off in April of 2015 at Coldwell Banker, and I was there for a few months, and then I joined up with you the end of October 2015.
Okay, so you've been here a little, maybe somewhere in the 5 month. So you have not been in the business for more than a year. You've actually been in the business roughly 10 months as of right now.
Yep.
Okay, and how many closed transactions combined between here and your former company have you done in your 10 months?
3, 4, 5, like 7?
Okay. Is that a question or an answer?
I think it was 7.
Okay, good. All right. I heard a little upswing there. I didn't know if you were asking me the question or what.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification there. I was confused too.
Yes, there you go. Okay. So, hey, that's fantastic. 7 in your first 10 months. Now, how many of those 7 would you say, how many of those are buyer-controlled versus seller-controlled transactions?
Well, I just had my first 2 sales on the seller side that closed. Those were my last 2 that closed.
Okay.
The rest of them were all buyer side.
Okay, so your first buyer, out of the 7, 5 were buyer transactions and 2 were listing controlled sales, and it just happens to be that your last 2 sales were listing controlled sales. I think that's what you're saying.
Yep.
So what moving forward, let's just kind of dive in and tell me, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish by the end of 2016?
Well, my goal in closed transactions that we set out was 41. I still think that that's an obtainable goal this year. I also want to work at least 80% of my business to be from the seller side. So that's one of my goals to do also this year.
Okay, so if you're going to do 41 deals, and 20% will be buyers, 80% will be sellers, so roughly 8 buyer closings, and let's just say 33 listing closings. That's what you're looking at, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it. So tell me this then. I'm just kind of curious as to what you'll say, and if I could hear, I'd love to hear the whole entire audience as to what they would say to this question, to see how many people actually, know how to calculate this. But in order to have 33 listings closed, how many listings do you think you need to take annually?
I bet that number's in my business plan that we went over.
It probably is in your business plan.
Let's see. I don't know. 60?
Well, let's just say, well, let's just kind of we'll go in back. We'll go in reverse.
Okay.
And just kind of try to figure this thing out.
Okay.
So if you have to have 33 closings, 33 listings closed, and I'm seeing if there's a calculator anywhere around here. If you actually sold only, and I know you'll sell more than this, but we're just going to use a real generic ratio, okay? And again, I know it'll be more than this, but if you only sold 50% of all the listings you took, that would mean you'd have to have 66 listings taken, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, you may not know that approximately nationwide, 13% of transactions fall through. That's more of a national statistic, between 12 and 13%. Yours will probably be lower. I bet you it'll be probably around 10% based on more of a company average. Okay, so then obviously you're going to have to add some additional listings on top of that, because some of them you'll sell and they'll never go to the closing table for one reason or another. Maybe the buyer's financing was to fall through. So if we just added some more on top of that, you're probably now looking somewhere in the 74 listings taken range.
Okay.
Okay. So how many then? So then once you divide 74 into 12, that means you would have to take 7 listings per month to get 74 listings to have 33 close. Okay, again, this is very rough, and for those that might listen to this this hangout at some point, or watch this hangout, you have to understand this. Until you have numbers on an agent, until you have historical data, you have to make up the data. So Brittany has not been with the company long enough or in the business long enough for us to look at her historical numbers to come up with what her ratios really are. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use some rules of thumb, and we're just going to say 50%. Okay, and then we know that over time, as she's turning the numbers and we're looking at numbers together, we can actually change the business plan and change all of our ratios based on her actual numbers. So some people, they already have actual numbers, so you wouldn't have to guess like this. So let's just it's going to take 74 listens taken, but here's the challenge, and this is what I want to talk about, Brittany. If you had 74 listings right now, it would be pretty easy to sell 33. But if you're taking only 7 a month, then that means this month you have 7, next you have 14, next you have 21, next you have 28. Then we would be at the end of the year and you wouldn't have enough listings in your inventory to do the 41 transactions, because some of those listings would be new listings. So the reality is, in order to actually take 74 listings, which we know after fall throughs would close 33 of them, you're going to have to take those 74 in the next 6 months, not in the next 12 months, because you've got to put them on your shelf, and they've got to have time to actually sell. You can't expect that your 74th listing the last week of December, and then that one's going to actually be listed, and it's going to be sold, and it's going to be closed in the calendar year 2016. So what we have to do is we have to look at the numbers, what we would call your annual numbers, and now we have to figure out how to do in 1 year when it comes to listings taken. We have to figure out how to do that within 6 months. Okay, so now that changes the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Because now what you have to do is you have to take 74 listings in 6 months, which is 12.3 a month. So let's just say 12 a month.
So Greg, I got a quick question. So, and I don't know if I'm the only one that doesn't understand the numbers a little bit, but why 74 to only close 33? Why is there such a big difference in the amount of listings you're taking? Is it just a time thing, or?
Well, so so what we're doing here is we don't have historical data on Brittany. The ratio that we're making up is that she will sell 50% of the listings that she takes. Okay?
Is that a pretty normal ratio?
That's a safe number to use as a ratio when you don't have historical data. Okay. So remember, Brittany's been in the business since April. She's fairly new to the business. Before she came to my office, she had only done buyer sales.
Right.
Notice her last 2 sales were listing sales. Interesting that's been since she's been with my office. Okay. So what that tells us is she doesn't have a lot of experience on the generating of the listing side. She's gaining it rapidly. Trust me, she's a fireball. There's no question about it. But what a lot of agents, where a lot of newer agents make their mistake, is they start using ratios like 70% of all the listings they take will sell. But unfortunately, they don't have the skill sets yet to actually really live up to that ratio. So I would rather err on the side of caution and say, and then look in 90 days from now and look at her and say, wow, she's crushing this ratio. Right. So then what we can do is we can adjust the plan. But when you adjust the plan, all we'd be doing is saying, okay, now you don't have to work as hard. So what people do in the beginning is they overinflate what they believe their ratio is going to be, and then they look 90 days, and they can't change it. They can't make up for the lost time. So if anything, if I'm wrong and Brittany's wrong, we'll be ahead of the game.
Right.
We won't be behind the game. We won't be behind. Okay.
Got it.
So
fair enough.
Right now, Brittany, it's going to take 12 listings per month. So tell me this. How many listings are you getting per month right now?
Well, let's see. I've gotten...
And I know this is new, so
4.
How many in the last month?
4? I think 4.
Okay. Okay, that's believe me, that is very good. Now what we're doing here is Brittany, you've said you want to be on the fast track and you want to knock it out of the park. So let's just say that right now you're averaging 4. What do you think you need to do to jump from an average of 4 to an average of 12?
Well, I definitely think I need to up my contacts, make more night calls, and devote a little bit more time on the weekends to it. And, just be really relentless in my follow-up, which I have been lately, but I felt like not so much before these last couple of weeks. It's really kicked in now, so I need to keep up with that for sure.
Okay. So how many contacts are you making right now?
About 30.
Okay, got it. So this is a rule of thumb, okay? Remember, until you have historical data, we have to make up the numbers. So I'm going to give you another rule of thumb. And this is straight out of Mike Ferry's playbook. I mean, gosh, how many conversations we've had and I've had with Mike Ferry over the years. I mean, he basically says this in his training program. He says, the number of transactions that you do annually will equal the number of contacts you must do daily. Okay? It's very simple. Now, over time, you may prove that your skill sets are better or maybe not as good as that ratio would warrant. But right now, we know if you want to do 41 transactions, the absolute minimum number of contacts you can do on a daily basis would be 41. If you want to do 41 deals, you got to make 41 contacts. Now, that's the rule of thumb up until you have your own ratios, your own data, and then we'll adjust the plan from there. So right now, that would tell us that you're making about 25% fewer contacts than your business plan would warrant. And that's important, because Brittany, you're saying you're making about 30 and you need to make 41. Now, people would say, well, gosh, that's not too far off, but let's put it into a percent. It's 25% off. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, for those listening and for yourself, Brittany, that I don't bring this up in an attempt to beat you down. This is just one of those ahas. It's like, hey, here's an opportunity, right?
Yep.
If we're trying to connect the dots between what you want and and the path that you're on, this is just, wow, we just found something very easy that we can put our finger on that you can actually control starting, as soon as we get off the phone.
That's right.
Okay, so now about night calls and weekends. So this is always one of those things that I sometimes, a lot of people know that the evenings would be great for phone calls, for follow-up. Saturdays are fantastic times, but realistically, how much time or how many days in the evenings, Monday through Friday, can you really commit to working? Because you got to be realistic here. Well, or any other time that you want to mention.
Well, now I have a system in place where I can work 2 to 3 nights during the week, during the Monday through Friday.
Okay, got it. So how many nights will it be?
2 or 3.
Okay, so will it be 2 or 3?
I think it's gonna be an every other week kind of thing. Is how it's gonna go. So
Okay.
2.5, Greg.
And tell me. Okay, so can you explain to me what's going on as to why it may be an every other week thing? Does that have something to do with
Just my daughter
your
and
child care situation?
Yeah, switching off
Got it.
childcare and
Okay.
just being fair so that it's even.
Okay, got it. So I would, as somebody that's going to be guiding you, I would recommend that you commit to 2 every week.
Okay.
Okay. So and I'm not saying I want the 3rd one every other week. There's no doubt about it. But what I'm gathering is that you could probably make a commitment to the 2.
Yes.
And then there's a 3rd one out there that's floating around that that may or may not occur.
Right.
And so what I'm looking for when I'm advising or coaching somebody that wants to do something big like you want to do, which is a lot of business very fast, then I want to focus on the commitments that we can actually make and we can fulfill. I don't want you to focus on possibilities or on things that may or may not happen, because we can't. It's not predictable, so therefore it's not going to be measurable. And if we can't measure it, then we're not going to be able to do anything about it. Okay. What about the Saturdays, or what about the weekends? What is your plan there? You mentioned weekends.
I've been putting in maybe 5 or 6 hours every weekend. I think that's good. I'm going to keep doing that. That seems to be what I'm getting in every weekend.
What is your what are you doing on the weekends in those 4 or 5 hours? Are you making new contacts? Are you following up?
Both.
Or are you doing paperwork? What does it really consist of?
New contacts, following up. I have weekend appointments on buyers and sellers side, showing property, inputting, listings, new things. So, just basically whatever needs done that day,
Okay, got it. So what I'm picking up on right now is that you're a person that says, okay, I'm going to work on Saturday. I'm going to work 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever that number is, but I don't sense that you have measurable goals during that period of time. I sense that you have things that you're getting done, and I believe you that you're working, and I believe that you're getting stuff done, but in order to really, really gain the traction that you're looking to gain in a short period of time, I think you have to define a little bit more as to what you want to accomplish on nights and weekend. Here's an example. Okay, an example on Saturday may be, yes, you have a buyer appointment, yes, you have a listing appointment, and you have some other follow-up things. But around every bit of all those things that I have to accomplish, I'm going to make an additional 10 new contacts on that Saturday. And I'm going to focus on those 10 contacts being people that I wasn't able to reach during the week. So you got to come up with a number. We can't leave it to I'm going to make some calls.
Okay.
Because I'm going to make some calls is exactly what the real estate agent says when they want to build in a justification for actually not accomplishing anything. In other words, they make a couple attempts. They ring the phone a couple times, and they go home and they tell their spouse or significant other, yeah, I made some calls. No, all you did is pick up the phone. You dialed 3 different phone numbers, and that qualified as making calls. And then there's some times where you'll have a real powerful mindset, and you'll go in there and you'll make 20 contacts, and you'll go home and you'll say, I made some calls. Well, see, when people say I'm just going to make some calls, then you'll see inconsistency in the results. But when somebody says, I'm going to make 10 contacts, not 10 attempts, not 10 calls, I'm going to talk to 10 people every single Saturday, then now it becomes a do or a did not. I either did it or I did not do it. I either passed or I failed. I either accomplished it or I didn't accomplish it. See, you're giving yourself too much wiggle room when you don't actually commit to a number. But when you commit to a number, then if you don't do it, you're going to have to be held accountable to it. Even if it's just you holding yourself accountable, you'll know when you leave that you didn't accomplish what you intended to accomplish.
Okay.
So what I'm gathering and what my coaching here is, in every single area, define what it is you're looking to accomplish in the period of time that you have set aside for that task.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's how many contacts Monday through Friday in the mornings?
30 a day.
30?
A day.
Okay. Okay, how many does it take? How many contacts does it take to actually do 41 deals?
41.
Okay. So how many contacts must you make Monday through Friday?
41 each day. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I'm saying each day.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So, okay, that you're looking at, or I'm looking at you right now, and you're like, oh, I just want to punch you in the face right now, Greg.
No, that's
okay.
not true. I swear.
So, Greg, I just want to punch you, Greg. I just want to punch you. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking that if
41.
we just need to divide up how many I'm missing every day over the 1, 2, 3 more days that I'm going to be making calls nights and weekends, and make sure I hit that number.
Yeah. Okay. So ultimately, you can take 41, and you can times it by 5, because really it's a 5-day prospecting schedule is kind of how we look at it, and that would be 205 contacts. So ultimately, it's 41 per day, but for the week, it's 205 contacts per week.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're going to use the evenings and the Saturday in order to make up the remaining balance that you're not doing in the mornings on Monday through Friday, you just have to remember that each week it has to be 205.
Okay.
Okay. So what would you say what would you say is your weakness? Because and I'll ask you about your strengths, but I want to start with, what would you say is your weakness in the area of prospecting and converting leads into listings?
Okay. I think I'm getting weaker, not stronger, on my cold calls because I'm getting really bored with them. And I'm just sick of saying the same thing over and over, and I'm trying to, repetitious boredom, I know is the thing you got to master, but it's harder than it sounds. And I think I'm just I'm not as engaged in my conversations as I used to be, and I don't know if that's because I need to add more pillars and to define, I'm calling for sale by owner at this time, I'm calling expired at this time, I'm calling this at this time, and I'm doing, the not follow us but touching back in with people from my database at this time. And just for me to keep me focused, doing something different so that I'm not sitting there staring and dialing away but not really being present enough,
Yeah. So this is a great conversation to be having, because you got to understand, as you spend more and more time in this business, you run the risk, as you spend more time and you get better at what you do. Some of the things, like calling a for sale by owner to you today, might not be boring, but when you advance in your career, it will be boring.
Yeah.
So the challenge is if you're chasing, if you get caught in that race or the chase of trying to chase the thing that is exciting, then you actually never become the master at anything in this business. And it's the one that, again, I really am happy this comes up, because Brittany, what you've got to do is you've got to find the excitement in the boring.
Okay.
Not look for the excitement, because everything you will do, once you get really good at it, you'll then start to get kind of bored with it.
Right.
And so many real estate agents suffer from this. But if you look at the professionals, whether they're the actors and actresses that are making the most money, that are making the biggest difference around the world with their art, whether it be musicians, whether it be athletes, whether it be business professionals, the one thing that they all have in common is that they actually can handle repetitious boredom. And, you know, obviously we've had this conversation, but as a younger, meaning young as in how long you've had your license, as a younger real estate agent, as a newer real estate agent, what you want to do is you want to face repetitious boredom, and you need to stare it right in its face and actually deal with it and handle it. Do not run from it, because I can be assured, here's what ends up happening. Well, I don't want to cold call. I'm just going to call expireds. Well, I don't want to call expireds getting bored. I want to work FSBOs. Well, I don't want to work expireds, FSBOs, and cold calls because they're getting bored. I'm going to work rent-bos. Well, I don't want to work expireds, FSBOs, rent-bos, cold calls. I'm going to become an investor. Well, I don't want to become an investor because it's now boring and all these things are boring. Everything's boring. So now I'm just going to become a coach. Well, now I'm going to get bored with making a bunch of coaching calls. Now I'm just going to change professions. You will chase excitement all the way out of the real estate industry. And then you get to the next business. And what starts off as exciting gets boring. And then you switch and it gets boring, and then you chase another profession. I understand that this can be boring, but you have to make a decision. Do you want to be a top producer who can provide for your daughter at a level that I know you aspire to provide? Or do you want excitement inside of your real estate career? And it will be, by the way, one or the other. It will be one or the other.
Okay.
You have a job to do here. You have a job to do here. And you're going to find all your excitement and everything outside of the job. Now, outside of, I should say, prospecting. Not, you know, you can have as much excitement as you want after the 41 contacts, after the 205 contacts are done. But inside of that, stick to the process. What are your thoughts?
I am so okay with sticking to the process. I know the process works. I believe in it. I've completely sold myself out to it. And I can make those calls every day for 3 hours a day. I can do it, and I'll continue to do it. However, I do think that there's some merit in not having the exact same conversation for those whole 3 hours. Maybe just a couple little variety specs. I don't need, like, to go outside of, like, here. I'll stay there, but you know what I mean? Just like a couple different conversations, just for my sanity. Like, is that okay to want that? I mean,
yes. So here's what my suggestion to you will be with.
Okay.
I love that question. That was a great question.
Yeah. As you know, as anyone's going to be able to tell very quickly, Brittany's not going to be one of those that's just going to back down and take a subordinate role in this in this relationship. So, just because Greg said it really does not apply with her.
No.
Okay, so here's what I'm picking on you. I'm picking on you, Brittany. But here's my advice. Okay, here's my advice, and I really mean this. And I'm glad that you're questioning or having additional questions on this thing. My advice is this: play with the questions that you ask. That's where it can get really fun. That's where you can spice it up. That's where it can be exciting. That's where, like, every conversation can be different. Is if you will become a master listener to the person who's on the other end of the phone, and then you can ask very, very good questions that are based on what you heard because you're a great listener. Mm-hmm. Your conversations will not be boring. See, the conversations are boring when you're actually on the phone listening to listening to yourself think about what you're going to say next. But when you actually turn your listening from yourself to actually really becoming a master listener of the person, that's on the other end of the phone and actually focusing and hearing what it is that's unique about their situation, and then asking a totally different question that you didn't ask on the last 5 phone calls that you had, asking a totally different question to this person. That to me should be your game. It's not what you say is boring if you're always listening in the same way and you're always asking the same questions, because if what you say is always the same, then you're always going to get the people to say the same thing back. But if you're listening and identifying creative questions that you can ask the person on the other end of the phone in order to get deeper into some sort of relationship with them or deeper into the conversation, then it's never going to be the same. So I would say with you, take more risk with the questions you ask. Take more risk. And I'll tell you, sometimes I'll ask questions to people that are like almost borderline, well, that was a little bit like out there. Like, how did he really just ask that question? Yes. It's not boring when I'm asking that type of question, but you'll be amazed at what you'll get back. And sometimes I'll ask a question and somebody may say to me, I can't even believe that you asked the question. But because you did,
I remember a question you asked one time, Greg. I remember one. It sticks in my brain.
Okay.
You asked a son if he loved his father.
Oh.
That was impressive. Yeah, it was awesome. God, it opened up so many doors, though. Yeah, it was great. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But it was.
Yeah. So great point. I mean, because as soon as he just said that, I actually emotionally, I kind of well, my first reaction was a little bit, ooh. And then all of a sudden, then I got wind of the power that can be from that question, right?
Yeah,
and I
because
think that's
the son was going to use a family friend realtor or something, and he was trying to sell the home for his dad or whatever the situation. It was something like that, and I remember that question came up, and it was legit.
Oh,
yeah.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. That's when Frank flew over here and we did that video.
Yep. I remember watching that a bunch of times.
Yep.
So yep.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Brittany, what he's sharing, and I think this is important right now. It kind of stresses the point. As I was dealing with a son on the phone right now, who was being the guard, the gatekeeper, not allowing anyone to talk to the father, and the son was making real estate decisions for the father, and the son had no clue on what he was doing, and he was pushing a real estate friend of his onto his father, and they were just going down a path that there was zero chance the property was going to sell. So you have to take that for face value and just know that the circumstances where he had zero chance that this property was going to sell, and the father desperately needed to sell this property, and the son just was being a gatekeeper and was refusing because he wanted to give his friend some money. And I just flat out asked him, I said, do you love your dad?
Wow.
And I remember him saying to me, he goes, yes, I do. I said, look, I believe you. But right now what we have to do is we have to put your dad first and put your friends aside and start looking at what's best for them. I mean, if you truly have your dad's best interest, and then I'm not sure exactly what I said, but you need to give me his number. I need to talk to him. I can't recall exactly what happened there. But that's what I'm referring to. Take more risk, because I don't feel like my day is necessarily too boring, because I'm always taking risks in the questions that I'm asking, and when I ask better and deeper questions, the conversation's never the same. How about that, Brittany? Can you take that on?
Yeah, I like that. I'm not scared to ask anything, so I that would be a good kind of game for me to spice it up, as you say.
Yeah, I think it actually fits your personality. I think you're courageous enough and bold enough to be able to pull this off. You're not one of those that are just kind of necessarily shy. So I would say in the area of repetitious boredom, go ahead and actually really take risk in the questions that you ask. And we also know that a lot of the top producers and people that excel very quickly in the real estate industry, one of the things that I would say they're very strong with is asking questions. They can actually get to the core of the consumer's challenge or goals fast because they're willing to ask the tougher questions. So that becomes your game. What would you say is your strength?
I think that my strength is just in talking to people. I'm able to portray confidence in just about any situation, even if I'm not the most comfortable with it. I don't think it comes across. And then also when I'm with people one-on-one, face-to-face, I feel like I do really well in guiding them to make the decision that, obviously I feel is in their best interest, but the one also that I want them to make. So
Got it. Okay, good. So an example would be laying out a multiple prices and giving them a price range, and then you know that you really want them to choose price number 2, and being able to present it in a way where they end up choosing the one that you really wanted them to, but at the same token, you're giving them options. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Okay, so before we get off, I wanted to just share this one little kind of a little formula, and I think it's something that you know, but I may not have said it in this way, and I was talking with a few people earlier today, and I kind of made some notes, and I just wanted to leave you with this, and that is, when you're making your calls, here's what's really critical in the beginning of your career. When you're making your calls and when you're talking with people who are somewhat interested, in other words, they're leads, they're showing some signs that they want to, buy or I should say list a piece of property. One of your first jobs, and this is going to be through questioning, is you have to, number one, you have to identify their needs. Okay? Number one, your job is to, on every call, is to identify their needs. Now, most of the time, if it's somebody who's thinking about selling, it's a lead, most of the time, their need is to rid a pain. So I could say step number one is identify the pain. So on every single call, when you leave the call, you need to ask yourself, what did they need? What was their pain? And if you cannot leave the call with an understanding, then you didn't do your job on the call. Now, again, we're assuming that you're talking to somebody who's thinking about selling at this moment. Mm-hmm. The second job that you have is you have to identify the solution. You first, hey, what is your problem? And hey, what is the solution? You want to immediately get into solution mode. As soon as you identify one's pain or one's need, you have to immediately switch gears and say, I am a problem solver. I am the painkiller. I am going to identify the solution. The third thing you have to do is you have to communicate the solution in an authoritative manner. And when you do it in an authoritative manner, the consumer will follow you. Now, of course, we're talking about a real pain and a real solution, and then communicating it with authority. Because you are the professional. If you were a doctor, somebody says, I've got a pain. They tell you what the pain is. You feel around a little bit more, and when you see them really, tighten up, then you just identified exactly where the pain's coming from. Based on your skill sets and your knowledge and the years that you've been learning as a doctor, you would immediately find the solution. And then you would communicate the solution to them because a doctor, they are already in an authoritative position. So what we want to do is we want to follow that same pattern. We want to communicate it just like the doctor would communicate it. We want to communicate it in an authoritative manner that leads them to step 4, which is to take action. Right now, who knows what this real estate market's going to do? We don't know if it's going up, if it's going down. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air. There's a lot of volatility in stock markets and economies and whatnot. Who knows what's going to happen? Some people say that winter's coming. Some people say that we're just going to be smooth sailing and be stable for quite a long time. Who knows? We don't know. But what you've got to do is you've got to solve people's challenges, solve their problems. That's what a great real estate professional does. So somebody that's new in the business, I think you need to get real present real quick you have a big responsibility on your shoulders. And that is You have to identify need, prescribe solutions, speak in an authoritative manner that leads people to take action, knowing that when they take action, their problems are solved. That is a career worth having. Have an authoritative type or more bolder. I wanted to share this with you because it fits who you are. Now, what you want to do is you want to take one of your natural talents and you want to blend it with one of these with the skill that I just mentioned, and go out there, make your contacts, and you're going to get these 41 deals. I'm more than confident that you can do this. Any last questions from me, Brittany, or Scott, if you got anything that you wanted to throw in at the end?
No, I'm good, man. I think this is a great way to kind of close it out, and some really good action steps for Brittany to take.
Okay. Any questions for me, Brittany?
No, I think that's really clear. And it does give me a new sense of purpose, which I think was ultimately really what I was missing. So I like that. Career worth having. It's great. Great way to put it.
Yeah. You see, and tell me this real quick. Why do you want to be successful?
Well, I feel like I've got something to prove in my life that I want to reach my fullest potential. I think it's a waste not to. I think that I haven't exactly had that example in my life, so I've had that obstacle to overcome, and I just want to prove that I can do it without the example, the environment, maybe, so to speak, the upbringing, any challenge, that I can just do it, and I can be everything that I really think I'm able to be.
Yeah, got it. And I know that you have it in you, and I know that you have it in you. Okay, and what we have to do from this point forward is just believe that you make a difference. And what I'm sharing with you on you're a problem solver for the consumer, that is you making a difference. And here's the key. As you make a difference in buyers and sellers, then you make a difference in yourself. And when you make a difference in yourself, guess who else you make a difference for?
That baby.
Your daughter.
Yep.
Your daughter. And I want you to remember this every single day. When you come here and make a difference for the consumer, it makes a difference for yourself. And as you make a difference for yourself, you actually make a difference for your daughter. That becomes your duty. And that is what you need to be coming every single day with that in your mind. Okay? I think we'll just leave it like that. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
And we'll see you next month on a Harrelson Hangout. Not sure who I'm going to have on the show, but I will have one of my agents, and we'll be rocking and rolling just like we did this month.
All right. Thanks, Greg.